Let's get cooking. It's going to be the first episode of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. Happy to be broadcasting here on YouTube. I'm definitely looking forward to this. Something I wanted to put together, kind of even practice putting this program together. And the reasons why for this program, there's a lot of reasons why, but let's kind of go into it quickly. I'm a huge sports fan. I watch ESPN, Fox Sports, listen to Sports Talk Radio in the car. So I'm like most guys in America, a sports fan. The issue that I started having is when I watch these sports shows and these debate shows, I listen to people on Sports Talk Radio, and I disagree a lot with their opinion regarding these athletes, regarding the modern-day professional athlete. I disagree with their criticism, for I feel a lot of times the criticism is really wrong, unwarranted. And I also think there's a bit of a racial element behind it that nobody really wants to acknowledge or even accept. And that's something that we're going to do on this program. We're going to call it out. I name it Chin Check because we're going to be hitting hard with our opinions. Everybody else can voice their opinion. We're going to voice our opinion. We're not trying to downgrade or disrespect anybody, but we're simply going to give it to you, the facts, the hardcore facts about sports. Now, a little bit about me. I'm an active person, love to work out, love to train, love weightlifting, and I looked at this show from a lot of perspectives. When I thought about creating a YouTube channel, I thought about what type of channel I would create. So, for instance, you have guys, and let's go on and let's put this out there. I'm a huge fan of the brothers Professor Black Truth, The Black Authority with Jason Black, Tariq Nasheed. I'm a huge fan of those guys. So if you're hearing this broadcast, you have an issue with those guys and what they stand for and what they talk about and how it relates to black people and the empowerment of black people, you can go fly a kite and go find another channel. Those guys, those brothers are on point. I listen to each one of them, pick which day of the week. I think those guys, all their shows and broadcasts are on point, and it's just what folks need as black people. It doesn't mean it's anti-white. It means it's pro-black, and it's always for the empowerment and the betterment of black people as a whole. So I think the work that those guys do and the knowledge that they put out there for people to listen and learn and study and become better people or to better us as a people, I think is really second to none. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. So you have a guy here on YouTube called the Solo Monster. If I want to go something light, funny, I listen to the Solo Monster because listening to his show tends to bring me back to when I was a child. A lot of the moments on his show that he talks about are things that I remember watching from my childhood. Shows, primetime wrestling, a huge WWF World Wrestling Federation fan before it became World Wrestling Entertainment. World Championship Wrestling used to come on TBS at 6:05 Saturday night. You had WWF Superstars. They used to come on Saturday afternoon around 12 o'clock after Saturday morning cartoons for those of us that's old enough to remember. I remember Wrestling Challenge. They used to come on Sundays around noon, kind of right before football. So I listen to his broadcast because it definitely brings me back to my childhood. I can reminisce, and it's something that's harmless, it's simple, something that's fun. I listen to Soul Monster. I'll listen to a guy by the name of Nick Strength and Fitness, where he goes into bodybuilding and the history of bodybuilding. As somebody who likes to work out and weight lift, and I've been active all my life, I like listening to his show because I am a fan of professional bodybuilding. I've thought about doing professional bodybuilding, but the whole what you have to do to get to that level of bodybuilding, which is an open secret in bodybuilding, I didn't want to partake in that. But I respect the discipline level of bodybuilders. And, of course, we all know guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lee Haney, and my personal favorite bodybuilder is Ronnie Coleman. Back when he first won the Olympia in 1998, I was in my senior year in high school, so I, love Ronnie Coleman. Me and my friend of mine, we used to consider ourselves. I was Ronnie, he was Flex Wheeler, being he was a little smaller than me. And of course, guys through the years: Robbie Robinson, Lou Ferrigno, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, Flex Wheeler, Dorian Yates. So I respect bodybuilding. I think it's a great sport. So I listen to guys like Nick Strength and Fitness. Very good show. He's very detailed on his analysis of bodybuilding. So definitely a fan of the show. I listen to that. Now, let's just jump right into it. This program is going to be about that hard-hitting sports opinions as I talked about earlier. Now, I'm going to focus on, number one, the Dallas Cowboys. I like to think of myself as the biggest Dallas Cowboys fans outside of the state of Texas, outside of the city of Dallas. I'm the biggest Dallas Cowboys fan on the east side of the Mississippi River. I am a huge Cowboys fan. I will be that until I leave this earth. I can go into history about the Dallas Cowboys. I remember coming up from New Jersey. Yes, being a New Jersey fan of a Dallas Cowboys, a New Jersey resident, a Dallas Cowboys fan, can tell you how much I had to deal with all through my years living in New Jersey. So, as a Cowboys fan, I went through the Super Bowl golden era, the 3 championships in 4 years, the triplets, the Hall of Famers, Jimmy Johnson, to the Barry Switzer era that gave us our last Super Bowl, to when Barry Switzer was fired, to the Chan Gailey era that was average at best, to the Dave Campbell era that's possibly the worst era in Cowboy history, to the Bill Parcells era that eventually the team started to build itself back up and drafted stars and Pro Bowlers and Hall of Famers, to the Wade Phillips era, to now the Jason Garrett era. So this show is going to be a heavy dose of the Dallas Cowboys. A very heavy dose of the Dallas Cowboys. I'd even say it one more time. A heavy dose of the Dallas Cowboys. Doing off-season moves, during the season, watching the game. We'll, dissect the games. We'll talk about current issues. For instance, Dak Prescott's contract, Amari Cooper's contract, Jalen Smith's contract. You have Ezekiel Elliott coming up for contract talks. The offensive line is Travis Frederick coming back. The fact that DeMarcus Lawrence, he just got some money. Suspensions of Randy Gregory, retirements of David Urban. So those are things that I'm going to give my opinion. And if you all agree on it. If not, that's fine. This is going to be a fun show for Dallas Cowboys fans. Also, I'm a fan of mixed martial arts. I respect mixed martial arts. I also train in jiu-jitsu as well. I respect MMA. I like how they started from a niche sport, a hardcore sport, to a global phenomenon. And I admire the marketing team at the UFC putting together all the big fights, going back to obviously the Hoist Gracies and the Ken Shamrocks and the Oleg Taktarovs and the Dan Severns, to eventually you have the Mark Comans and the Don Frys and the Bass Rutins. Then, of course, you have the Chuck Liddells and the Tito Ortizes, to the Rampage Jacksons and the Forrest Griffins and the Fabricio Verdums and the Tim Sylvias and the Andre Arlovskis. So I watch UFC. If there's a big UFC fight, even some of the smaller guys, probably my favorite fighters, guys, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, George St. Pierre, love St. Pierre. So I respect those guys and what they do. But my first love is boxing. That's my first love is boxing. Not only will this show talk about the Dallas Cowboys, we're going to talk about boxing. I am another huge boxing fan, I have a friend of mine, Felix. If you listen to this show, Felix, we have a running joke about you being a disgrace, and that's an inside joke between you and I. And he definitely knows that, we have good conversations about boxing. One of the reasons why I love boxing is I love the sweet science aspect of boxing. I love the fact that 2 men are in there, engaged in battle, exchanging punches, skill set, timing, weaving. I really think boxing is truly a work of art. Now, I know people like to see heavy hitters. People like to see haymakers. People like to see knockouts. But I do respect the artistry of boxing. I do respect how one fighter can stand in front of another fighter and make him miss. I enjoy the ducking and slipping. I enjoy defense. I'm probably one of the few fight fans who actually enjoys defense. So I enjoy watching guys like Floyd Mayweather. While everybody says he's boring, I enjoy guys like Floyd Mayweather with the shoulder roll, James Toney with the shoulder roll, Pernell Whitaker with the bobbing and weaving and the head movement and the unorthodox defensive skills. Ronald Winky Wright with the hands-high fortress defense. So I've always been a fan of boxing. I think what also gets me about boxers is the work that goes into preparing for a fight, doing the road work every day, sparring, hitting the heavy bag, hitting the speed bag, hitting the focus ball, hitting the mitts, doing the sit-ups, preparing the body to fight 12 rounds. And I need people to understand something. You can train for a fight. You can do everything you have to do to train for a fight. But not only during a boxing match or grappling match or MMA match, not only are you training yourself physically, you're training yourself mentally, and here's why. Because you have to worry about what that other fighter brings to the table. So a lot of times, yeah, you're training your body, but you have to worry about training your mind as well, because now you have to be able to counter and be able to deal with what that opponent brings to the ring, to the mat, to the octagon, whatever the case may be. So I respect boxers. Another thing, what kind of boxers get to me is I feel that once they're done entertaining us, once they have gone through their prime, because you think about it, a boxer's prime isn't really that long. You figure fighters they come up through the ranks, they fight basically nobody for their first 20-something fights or so. Then little by little they start fighting, contenders, former champions, former title holders or titleists. That eventually start fighting top ranked contenders, fight the champion. If they win, then they have to defend the belt for a long time. So top flight professionals, and yeah, you might think of your long reigning champions like the Bernard Hopkins and the Marvin Haglers and the Larry Holmes and the Joe Lewises. So I've always stated that football players, they're immortalized, basketball players immortalized, but the punishment that boxers take. And yes, even though the whole world's about CTE and NFL guys, but in terms of just brain trauma, boxers have it the worst. So I always like the fact that fighters push themselves past the breaking point, but at the same time, they're forgotten. At the same time, once their fight career is over, they're no longer talked about. Like to this day, people still talk about guys like, Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali, may his soul rest in power for everything that he's done for the sport. But I think people tend to forget Muhammad Ali was actually a hated fighter during his fighting days. So people talk about Ali, obviously Iron Mike Tyson, and you talk about those guys because those guys transcended the sport. Those guys became media, I don't want to say media darlings, but became, I guess, media stars, crossover stars. And of course, you got Mayweather, probably the last big boxing star, Pacquiao to a certain extent. But there's a row of other fighters that people really hard to talk about. You figure now, you figure Evander Holyfield was a great fighter in his day. You got guys in the lower classes, the Julio Cesar Chavez's, the Roy Jones, the Andre Wards. Andre Ward was a great fighter, retired undefeated, which I don't think he gets mentioned as one of the great fighters of all time. Joe Galsaghi, another great fighter that I don't think gets the credit that he deserves. Even Bernard Hopkins. I think Bernard Hopkins is probably one of the top 10 greatest fighters who ever lived. I don't think he gets that type of mainstream really until the Felix Trinidad fight and, of course, fighting De La Hoya and the other big fights. And a part of his magic was doing the things that he did at his advanced age. So, I could think guys, Iran the Blade Barkley, Thomas Hearns, oh my goodness, Wilfredo Benitez. So I think, Donovan Razor Ruddock, another solid heavyweight of the 90s who went back-to-back fights with Mike Tyson. Ray Mercer, another top heavyweight. Riddick Bowe, really forgotten heavyweight champion of the world. So I look at these fights and these fighters, and I think of all the joy that they have given me. Growing up, used to watch HBO, sure, like every other boxing fan. Watching Showtime, like every other boxing fan, and I understand times change and streaming services, and but it did hurt my heart that HBO decided to end their boxing telecast after 45 years. And I remember all the fights watching on HBO and HBO pay-per-view, all the fight parties at my man Julio's house. Me and a bunch of guys would get together for Fortune Off. My old job. And you would have, a bunch of my boys from the gym, all my old coworkers will get together, sit down, watch the fights, to going to the sports bar, watching the fights at the house where I still get goosebumps when there's a big fight. So I think hardcore fight fans know, and you could say now boxing now has become a niche sport, but there's many rising stars. And I fault some of the powers that be. I think the pay-per-view market sometimes has killed the fights. I don't think the powers that be has done enough to build up quality fighters, because you still got some of the same people around. The Bob Arums, and of course Don King is not as powerful as he was, but he's still around. You got the Al Haymans and the Oscar De La Hoyas with Golden Boy Promotion. You got the Duva Boxing. But I do think that where boxing has faltered is not marketing stars. There is a wealth of talent, I think, in boxing now. You have the heavyweights, which we're going to talk about them in a little bit. You have the Errol Spences, the Terrence Crawford. That's a marquee fight that people want to see. Vasily Lomachenko. That's a great fight that people want to see. Of course, Canelo Alvarez. So you got the Charlo brothers. Great fights that people want to see. Jared Swiffer, even though he just lost recently, another great fighter. Julian J. Rock Williams, solid fighters. Gary Russell, who fought on the undercard. So I think there is enough quality fighters out there who I think the public can rally behind, but it's something that I think that the boxing powers that be are going to have to do a better job of marketing. I don't know what that is. Maybe they've tried the whole putting it on national television. I'm sorry, I forgot about Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, please excuse me. Sean Porter, excuse me. I did not forget about these young lions. I think what will help the sport is they like to say, well, if it was on broadcast television. Well, they tried that. They tried putting it on broadcast television. And do you guys see any more Premier Boxing Champ? I don't see them. So now that goes into, do you put them on streaming services? Do you put them on YouTube? That's something that they would have to figure out. But I know me as a fight fan, there's a quality fight, I'm going to find the fight. And I think boxing is not a dying sport. I think the sport is still strong. I think the sport is still exceptional. I think the rules of the sport is just something that I can't get enough of. And I think other fight fans feel the same way. So if there's a bunch of hardcore fans like me who's going to be listening to this broadcast, who's going to agree with everything I'm saying or disagree with a little bit what I'm saying, that's fine. It's your opinion. Leave it in the comment section. And so let's jump right into it. We had a heavyweight championship fight this past weekend with WBC title holder Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder versus heavyweight contender Dominic Breazeale. And of course, there was a lot of bad blood going into the fight. There was a lot of words that was said. Apparently some incident happened years ago in Birmingham that kind of started the bad blood. And I think that carried over into the fight. It carried over into the promotion of the fight with the things that Deontay Wilder said. Me personally, I was kind of on the fence about that. To be honest with you, things that are said to sell a fight. I think every fighter has said something that kind of make you raise an eyebrow to what they said and what they meant. But a lot of that stuff is really to sell the fight. I didn't really have that much of an issue to what Deontay Wilder said. He was just trying to sell the fight. He is an intense guy. I'm a fan of Deontay Wilder. However, I will criticize if need be. And the same thing with the Cowboys. I will criticize Cowboys. I will criticize an athlete if the criticism is warranted, not just criticize just because. So if Deontay Wilder, fresh off of his draw versus Tyson Fury, I felt his style was exposed a little bit, and I think other fans who saw him come through the years saw the holes in his game, but he was able to get away with it because he was knocking guys out. And even though he almost knocked out Tyson Fury, but it was long stretches where I thought Fury actually outboxed him pretty convincingly. So I would hope that Deontay and his team, Mark Brillen, who was another great fighter, and his team would go back to the drawing board and tighten up on his skill set. I think Deontay is as strong as I don't know what. He hits like a ton of bricks, and I would hope he doesn't fall into the puncher's lull or the puncher's mentality of just relying on knockout power, because too often what happened with guys who are actual punchers will start to sacrifice technical ability and only focus on knockout power, and that can be their downfall. Ernie Shaver is one of the hardest hitters who ever lived. Literally one of the hardest hitters who ever lived. Was an average fighter at best. So that's something where I would hope that Deontay and his team would, after the Fury fight, go back to the drawing board and really refine his skill set. Now, why do you say refine his skill set? Deontay has a habit of winging punches. I feel like a lot of punches, if you were to throw the punches straight, for instance, the last knockdown versus Tyson Fury was a straight right hand down the middle and followed by a crushing left hook. That's a basic 1-2. So I've always stated that he has a potential. He has a chin. He has a solid chin. I mean, let's not face it, he was rocked by Luis Ortiz. So I think that Deontay does have a chin. I think Deontay has a stamina to go 12 rounds. Remember, he fought the 12 rounds to win the title versus Berman Stavern. Good 12 rounds. He was able to almost knock Tyson Fury out in the 12th round with 2 hard punches. So to me, that shows that this guy has everything that you need in, quote, a heavyweight fighter. He has a good chin. He has a stamina. He hits like a ton of bricks. Well, that checks off right there. Only thing, if he could tighten up just a little bit, is on his boxing ability. That's number one, tighten up on the boxing ability. Number 2, I feel he gets a little bit emotional during the fights. And that's a product of his personality. He's a very intense guy. Works both ways because his personality, I feel that it's what makes him who he is. I think his personality makes him the fighter that he is, has gotten him to the point. Keep in mind, this guy started off in the sport extremely late, being a former football player. So he has the athletic ability. He has the work ethic. So he knows the steps that's necessary to become great. So I applaud him for that. His intensity is what makes Deontay Wilder. And I think his intensity makes him the fighter and now the champion that he is. But a lot of times I notice during his fights, he'll get overly emotional, where he'll have a guy hurt and all of a sudden just run and just dart across the ring. I know that's killer instinct, but tighten up on the technique a little bit, where he'll just run across the wing, start winging punches, getting wild with the punches and stuff like that. It's like, say, brother, calm down. Eventually, you got the guy hurt. He's not going anywhere, and he's going to eventually finish him. So I've always felt that, kind of calm down emotionally. For instance, I think of the second Berman Stavern fight where the referee had to basically pry him off of Berman Stavern. A couple of times in that final round on the Tyson Fury fight, I felt he got a little bit sloppy and got caught towards the end where I thought he was hurt at the end of that fight. But again, show great heart, show great chin. So I think Deontay is well on his way to becoming a top heavyweight. I think he's great for the sport. I think he has all the charisma to be a mainstream star. So I'm looking forward to what he sees. So let's go to the fight Saturday. Fight's Dominic Brazil. For those of you who don't know, fight lasted 1 round. I'm gonna say it again: 1 round, 1 damn round. Believe it or not, I look at everything, and I look at Deontay during that fight. Believe it or not, I thought his technique was actually a little bit better. He was throwing body punches. I hardly see him throw any body punches. He threw a couple of body punches. I felt his punches weren't as wild and wide as in the past. And even the knockout blow was basically a straight right hand right to the chin. So to me, that shows improvement in his technique. Now, again, it was a round. We had a very small sample size, so I can only judge by the sample size. The sample size that I saw was I saw a little bit of improvement in his technique where instead of the wide punches, I saw them short and compact. Now, this is a guy who's 6'7" long, 6'7" in height, with however long of a reach that can hit you from across the room. So I've always felt that if he was to throw straight punches with his knockout power, he'll be unbeatable. So I respect what he looked great. For the quick battle that it was, I thought he looked pretty decent. I thought his technique improved. Now we're gonna see if he continues. Well, he's gonna continue to fight, but if he fights quality opposition, that's the key. Quality opposition, and they drag him into those deep waters. I want to see whether we're gonna see the continued improvement and evolution in his boxing skill set. So that's what we're looking for. Now going forward, we want to see the fights. We want to see the fight versus Tyson Fury. We want to see a rematch. We want to see a fight between Anthony Joshua, the rematch between Tyson Fury. Those are fights you want to see. I don't know what else we have to do in order to see that. Me personally, I think Anthony Joshua is kind of ducking the man a little bit. Because first you claim that you wanted the man to put up this amount of money for the fight. The guy puts the money up. Now all of a sudden, we'll come to England. Okay, I'm willing to come to England. Now all of a sudden is this excuse. So it just appears to me, and again, I'm not in the meeting room. I'm not in the boardroom. It just appears to me that it does seem to be some ducking going on. And that's okay. But if you're ducking, if you're scared, ask Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis. If you're ducking and you're scared, kind of just say so. Stop kind of dragging everybody on. But I think those are the fights that we definitely want to see. I know Anthony Joshua has a fight coming up, so I believe that should be June the 1st. So we're going to see how that fight happens. First fight in America. He's a big star in Europe, in England. So we're going to see what he does on American soil. But I think now is a time to cash in on that fight. Or an Anthony Joshua versus the lineal heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, who beat the actual champion, Vladimir Klitschko, before Anthony Joshua did. So you have a lineal champion versus a guy who has most of the belts. So that'll be a fight that the fans want to see. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun for the sport. And this is, again, our first episode, our first broadcast. So I'm looking towards a interesting time. Of course, this is my first time really playing on YouTube as a new media, so something that I wanted to do. And, of course, I'm only going to get better. I'm going to take your suggestions and anything to improve the show, anything you guys wish to talk about. As time goes on, I'll be giving my email address. You can send me emails directly, any issue you want to talk about. So we're going to have some fun. It's definitely a fun show. I know the world is serious right now. This is just maybe a couple minutes of your time to just escape reality, have some fun a little bit, and we're definitely going to do the damn thing. So this is that Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD, and until the next time, be safe. Peace.